I'm Dean Cifola, and this is the Azure Academy. So there's another exciting announcement coming out of Azure, so let's get right into it. So here's our documentation page, and let's go up to the blog. And inside the blog, we see here source volume 75, and right there, the first one, Windows Virtual Desktop, now in public preview. So let's click on this. So what is Windows Virtual Desktop and why is this a exciting announcement? Well, first of all, Windows Virtual Desktop is where we take the Windows Server Remote Desktop Services, which has been around for a long time. And this is a collection of server roles that all function together to provide a virtual desktop environment. And that could be on a Windows Client OS or Windows Server OS, and also provide remote application access. So the RDS infrastructure has been made up of a lot of pieces, like I said, and that would be the connection broker, and that could be in a highly available state, in which case you'd have two servers, which also needs a SQL database of some kind. Then you would have the web access servers, and then the session host, which is where everything actually runs. And then you have the gateway, which controls the secure connections, and the licensing server, and then diagnostics and monitoring and all of that. So there's a lot of pieces, is why we came up with Windows Virtual Desktop, to solve the problem of how to have these kind of virtualized environments that can be accessible across any kind of device and be something that is easy to stand up and scalable and is really cloud focused. Let's get into the solution and start building it. Okay, and what we're going to look at is all under the tutorial section, but I wanted to point out one thing on this page first so that you don't lose sight of it, and that's the requirements. So the requirements here, we have a section talking about licensing, and you can read through that to make sure that you've got all the appropriate licenses you need. The other things that we need to make this solution work is Azure Active Directory. So we need a domain somewhere that we can join to. Now, if you have a regular domain like I do today, then you also need Azure AD Connect, so you can sync your users from your AD to Azure AD. And then our session host systems that we're going to create all have to be joined to your domain. Okay, and that could be standard join or hybrid join, but you need those pieces in place. So let's look at what I've got there. Okay, so this is my domain controller, and I'll just point out that normally it is not recommended to have Azure AD Connect on a domain controller, but this is a small lab environment. So I've got a bunch of users here, and I'm using Azure AD Connect to synchronize them over to Azure. Okay, and there are my users. Now this account here, this WVD account, this is my domain admin account. I've also got my domain admin in here as a global administrator of Azure Active Directory. We're going to need an item from under properties here, and that is the Azure Active Directory tenant ID. Okay, so I'll copy this, and in the tutorial, the first thing that we're going to need this for is right here, the Windows Virtual Desktop consent. So let me open that in a new tab. So what this is going to do is going to create for us an enterprise application of Windows Virtual Desktop. So there are two of these functions that we need to do. So I'll paste that in here and hit submit, and you will be asked to sign in and authenticate. And once you have done that, then you're going to consent to give permissions for this Windows Virtual Desktop app in your Active Directory, and I'll hit accept. All right, and that's done, and we can close this page. And going back to Azure AD, under Enterprise Applications, we see now we've got Windows Virtual Desktop here, and we'll come back to that in a second. Now let's go back here, and you could open up the very same consent page. There's another link for it here, just to be sure you didn't miss it, but it's the same exact page as you can see. And in here is the client app, and you want to paste again your Azure AD tenant GUID in here. Okay, and then we'll hit submit to that. And then we sign in again, grant the permissions, and hit accept. Okay, so what did we just do? Well, let's go back to Azure AD. Now you can see we've got two new enterprise applications, Windows Virtual Desktop and a Windows Virtual Desktop client. So let's open the client first, and we'll go under permissions. In case you're unfamiliar with enterprise apps and how they work, what we've got here, this is an enterprise app, and down here it has permissions to access Windows Virtual Desktop, which is another enterprise app. So the way that this is worked out is that the client app here, this is where clients would be registered and they would get their tokens to be able to use the environment. And then we have the Windows Virtual Desktop app, which actually has the permissions in Azure Active Directory. So going back to the client, we need to grant here the permissions for all of the users who are going to use this solution. Okay, so I've added a bunch of users here, and we'll hit select, and they're going to be given default access, and we'll hit assign. Okay, so there I've got some users now, And then one thing that I do just for completeness sake is I always like to have an owner of the group. And in this case, I'll make it my global admin. Then let's go back to Enterprise Apps and we'll go to Windows Virtual Desktop. So remember, the client app has access to this app, and in the permissions of this app we see this is where the Azure Active Directory permissions are actually located. So now under the owners, I'll just add myself in here again. And then under users and groups, you can see that my account already has default access, and that's because I created it with this account. But now we need to add some more users. These are the ones who have the permission of tenant creator, and that is a Windows Virtual Desktop tenant. And then I'll also add in another account here, and that is just so I don't have to be the only guy who's able to do this job. And then we'll hit assign. Okay, and you can see those are now tenant creators. So that's all that we need in Azure Active Directory. Now let's go over to the Azure Portal and look at our subscription. So here we have the domain controller that I showed you earlier, but I also have in this resource group an image. Now this image I took from a standard VM that wasn't joined to anything, it wasn't part of a solution or a domain, and I just installed some applications which we're going to use as part of this solution, and then I captured that as an image. So we'll need to reference this as part of our build. I've also put the virtual network over here because when you deploy this particular solution into this resource group, we need a blank resource group to deploy it from the portal. As part of that, coming back to our documentation, first thing we need is to download and install a PowerShell module, and you can get that link there, and you would install the module and then import it. And then after that, we're going to start running the commands to set up the tenant environment, and then we're going to build the host pool, which takes us to the next step in the documentation. So I'm going to cut away from here because in PowerShell, I've already written everything out here for you. So I'm going to have this script linked in the description below, and this will go to my GitHub page. And this is where you input your information in here. And then after you do that, then the script will execute and build everything for you. Okay, so it'll download the modules, it'll install them, it'll ask you to register with the service, build you the new tenant, build the new host pool, and grant you permissions within there. And then we're going to build out a app group for our remote applications and set your permissions on that. Okay, so we're going to do all that in a single script. Now, the items that you're going to need are your Azure Active Directory tenant ID, which we pulled from the portal a minute ago, your Azure subscription ID, the name that you want for your tenant. This one, do not change. This is the default tenant group. We need this for our very first group, so leave that one alone. And then we have the host pool, call the host pool whatever you like, the name of the application group that we're going to create, and then we need our account that's going to have the permissions to execute all this. And then I'm just bringing that together into a new variable. So I'm going to run this whole script, and my modules are already imported, and it asks me to sign in and authenticate, and we hit next. And then we provide our password and we hit sign in. Okay, and we are done. So it was that quick, and that was in real time. Now, these same values are going to be called upon as we build out the solution in the portal. So let's go do that. Okay, so we're in our resource group and we'll click add. And we're in the marketplace here. And at the top, you can just type virtual desktop and then select Windows Virtual Desktop, provision a host pool, and hit create at the bottom. Okay, so now we need the name of our host pool. And now we have to decide what kind of virtual desktop do we want to have. Do we want everyone to have their own box, or do we want to have pooled resources so multiple users can log onto the same box? I want pooled resources in this case. And in this box here, the default desktop users, these are the ones who are going to have access for the virtual desktop environment. And then if you want to add more users, you just put a comma. You don't need any spaces. Okay, so I've got a couple users in there now, and then we'll go to our resource group and select where we want to deploy that and our location, and we can hit OK. So now's where we decide what kind of configuration we're going to have for our environment. Now, the light, medium, heavy up here indicate how many virtual machines we're going to have, and then the size here is something that you can change, but it's how many users, how much density are we going to get into a solution. So in this case, I chose custom. We'll only be provisioning 2 machines here. If I said 200, then it would provision 200 machines, okay? So now we need a prefix. Now the prefix is what's going to be tagged onto the front of all of the VMs that we're going to build in this solution. So since I had MSAA as my prefix for everything else I did, I'm going to add that here. And this is Windows Virtual Desktop, so I'll have that as well. And then what's going to happen in the VM names is there's going to be a dash that comes after this and then a number for the instance count. So if you have other specifics around your naming convention, be sure that you have the prefix accordingly to that, and hit OK. And now's where we decide what the image and all the permissions are going to be for the box to join the domain. So we could use an image that's in blob storage right now. That could be just a VHD file. We can pull a image from the gallery, and that can be Windows 10 multi-session or Server 2016. Or you can use a custom image, and that's what I'm going to do in this case. So if I go back to my resource group where I had that stored, there's my image. So I'll just grab the name of that. And that was in the resource group called AADDS. And now you have to decide what kind of disk you want. HDD will be a little cheaper, but they will be slower. SSDs a little more expensive, but more performant. I like SSDs. So now we need a user account that's going to join our machines to the domain. And then we need our password. And just a word of warning here on the password. If you don't have a password that meets the complexity requirements for this account, say for some reason it's only 4 or 5 characters long, then this is going to throw an error here. So it does have to be a sufficiently long and complex password for this to be accepted. Now for specifying a domain or OU, if we do nothing, it will just take our domain suffix here. But you can also go in and specify that, and you can also specify the OU path that you want your VMs to join to. In this case, I'm just going to leave it at default. Now here's where we pick up our virtual network, and I'll select my existing network and my existing subnet for my host pool, and then we can hit OK. And one word of caution here as well, that you need to have this network already set up so it can talk to Active Directory. Otherwise, you won't have DNS, you won't be able to join the domain, okay? So let's go ahead. And then we come to the tenant group. Now, this is where I said earlier that we don't touch the default tenant group name. So I'll paste that in here. And now we need to know who owns the tenant. And this is that permission that we gave it in Azure Active Directory. So if I go back to the Enterprise Applications and we go to our virtual desktop app here, so that's going to be one of these users that have the tenant creator right. So in my case, WVD is going to work for this. Okay, and just another cautionary note that if that particular user that you put in here has MFA enabled, this is not going to work. So what you need to do if that's the case is either pick a different account or create yourself a Azure Active Directory service principal. So how would you do that? Well, the service principal here is going to need a app ID and the tenant ID. So let's go back to Azure Active Directory, and under here, under app registrations, or if you have app registrations preview, then you can do it here, but I'll do it under app registrations. We're going to create a new app, and I'll just call it test. And then we need a URL here. It does not have to be valid. It just has to be present. Okay, and now that has been created. So under settings, you can go to the keys, and then you can add yourself a new key here, and then give it a specific duration. I'll say never expires. And then you can throw in a value, which I'll just put in some random characters here, and then hit save. So that is now my password. Now that password, as soon as I leave this screen, will no longer be visible. So if I close that out and go back, we can see it is now hidden. There is no way to recover that password at all in any way, shape, or form that I am aware of. So make sure that you copy that password and then you put it into the password field here. Okay, and the other values that we needed was the app ID and then our tenant ID we already had from earlier. So the other screen that would do this is the app registrations preview. And when you're in here, it looks a little bit different, but under certificates and secrets, you would create yourself a new client secret. And you can, again, call it whatever you like and make your expiration whenever you want and hit add. And this one's going to auto generate. Now, again, same principle applies. You need to copy this. And if I click away from that screen and then go back into the secret and certificate, you can see, again, I can't see what this password is. So that value is obscured now. So you've lost it. So if you didn't get that before, just create yourself another one and go ahead. All right. So I'll delete all this. Okay, and let's go back and we'll stick with our username and password in this case, and we'll hit OK. Okay, so our final validations have been complete, so I'll hit OK here. And this is just the verification screen that you're really sure you know what you're doing and you want to do this, and that there is also the basic marketing prices and all of that of the solution here. And then you just hit create. All right, so that deployment is now running, and we can click on deployment in progress here to watch the deployment take place. So this will take a few minutes to build, and basically it's provisioning however many VMs you wanted in your solution. Then it's going to join them to your domain, and after it does that, then it's going to provision the PowerShell DSC to set this up as a session host server, join it to your tenant, and then we're going to be ready to do the next step. Okay, so our solution has finished deploying, and so let's go and see what we've got now. So here's our domain. We go to computers and we can see that both of our systems have joined. That's good. Now let's look at the Azure Portal, and looking at our virtual machines here, we'll go into one of the VMs and we'll go to the extensions. And what we want to see here is that both of our extensions have provisioned successfully. So let's go back to PowerShell, and we want to run this command to get our session host from our tenant from our host pool, and we can see that we've got our systems. So now what we need to do in order to make this accessible, we need to have some applications to work with. So if we look at our docs here, this is where we see that how we create a remote application so that we can share it. What I've done in PowerShell, so I just want my apps that I've set up in order to be added here. But if you don't have anything preloaded, just to get a look and feel for it, then you could basically run this command to say get all of the apps and then add all of them so you can see what that looks like. So I'll just run all of this code here. Okay, and that is complete. Now going back to the docs, now we need to access all of the stuff that we have created. Now this is back on page number 2 of the docs at the moment, near the bottom here. How do we connect to our clients and what clients are supported? So here's Windows 7, Windows 10. Here's our web client. So if I open each of these links up, this is the current list of the operating systems and browsers that are supported. This does not work currently on mobile platforms, but this is coming very soon. So here's the web client link. So I'll open that, and there's all of my applications. Now, of course, a web link is not the only way to view this. The other way is to install the client. So you can download this on Windows 7 or Windows 10, and then you can run it, log in, and get to the client experience. Okay, so here is the remote desktop app, and if I click on subscribe here, it'll ask me to log in. And we can see the same applications that I have subscribed to. Okay, so now if I click on something like Putty, then it'll initiate my session. It'll ask me for my password, and then of course you can check Remember Me so it doesn't ask you again. And it's logging us into the server remotely, and that'll take a few seconds for the very first login. And after that, you'll see everything will open pretty quick. Okay, so that was all right. So let's try to open another app here. Let's try the calculator, and that was pretty fast. And 7-zip, again, that was pretty fast. Let's open up paint.net. That's pretty good. And WinRAR, that was fast. And then Visual Studio Code. So this one I know usually opens pretty slowly. Okay, so there was VS Code, and it of course launches IE when it opens for the very first time. So it launched IE as well. I'll close that. Now, the other thing that I want to bring up here is when you're running these remote apps, let me just open a few simultaneously here. Okay, so now I've got all of these remote apps open. So if we look at my taskbar, we can see here that I've got a bunch of these icons now with this overlaid remote desktop icon on it. And we also have a system tray icon where we can close all of our app sessions at once. So the other thing that you do when you use this application is it will load them as start menu based programs. So I don't need to use this interface. So let me close this, and I'll close out of the apps. And if I go to my start menu and my tenant was listed under MSAA, So that's listed down here. So MSAA tenant, and it says RD, and when you go under there, it's got all of your apps listed. So you need the app installed so that you can subscribe, and after that, you really don't need it anymore except when you need to make updates and changes. So if you go to something like Calculator, kicks off a session, and there's the app. Okay. Now I called out that you need the app still when you're making updates and changes. So inside the app, under this ellipse and for your tenant, you've got details here, and that'll tell you who you are, what you're logged in as, how many apps you get, and there is a update button. So to remove the RDS remote app, my tenant from my host group, from my app group, and then we call out the name Calculator, and back in our remote app interface, we hit the update button, and now we've only got 7 apps and Calculator is now gone. So that's how you can add and change what apps you're presenting. All right, so if we go back to PowerShell and I run this command, then we'll add the Calculator to our out variable of new app, and then we can run our remote RDS command here, and then we can come back to our app and hit update. And then there's the Calculator. So that's how you can add and remove applications. So I hope that you've enjoyed this look at the Windows Virtual Desktop as we got to deploy this solution. Super excited about this. It's going to be a great platform for all of your app needs. And don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the notification icon so you can be aware of when our new videos come out, which is roughly once a week. Don't forget to click on that like button and give us some comments about what you're interested in going forward. Happy learning.